Hey everybody and welcome to Chairman of the Board. Today I'm looking at Orléans, which is a 2 to 4 player bag building and worker placement game. Now if you don't know what a bag building game is, basically it's a deck building game, but instead of using cards, you are using chits. And basically you're trying to get these chits to basically activate certain worker placement spots or get certain upgrades to improve your engine, all with the purpose of trying to get as much money and points as possible. The game is very kind of fast. It ticks along at a really nice speed, always kind of involved in this one. Very little downtime, and I have to say the game in its entirety is absolutely fantastic. This one flew straight into my top 10 of all time, and I just absolutely, it just really clicked with me and resonated with me straight from the get-go. So yeah, I'm going to give it away, Eddie, that I do really like this game. It is fantastic. I love the kind of variety of different strategies you can take in this game, because you can really focus on a lot of different things, such as activating worker placement spots, which get you kind of, what do they call it, like wild, which are these monks, so they can kind of count as any of these different chits, which can activate any spot. You've got the like the worksman or wood, I don't know what they are, like craftsman or something, where you can basically make your spots easier to activate, so you're kind of making your engine more and more efficient. You've got the knight spot, or the more knights you get into your board, basically you can pull more chits from your bag, which means you can do more on your turn. So there's loads of these different things to concentrate on, but not only are you trying to get the kind of right chits into your bag, you're also trying to climb up that that track, or that script, is it scriptorium at the bottom of the board, to which will really help with endgame scoring, because the higher up that chart you get, the more multipliers you're going to get in terms of how many buildings you've built in Orléans, or in France, sorry. And also you're trying to collect those different noble tiles, I think that's what they're called, basically again to improve your multipliers, because you're going to get not only the points for the goods you're collecting, also the money, and also the building you've placed, add those nobles, times how far you are on that scriptorium track. And I love games that use a track in the game. Basically, I love that kind of that niggling feeling throughout the whole game, that you've got to just try to get to the end of that board, as well as trying to do what you're trying to accomplish. A fantastic game with loads to think about, but always kind of kept within the parameters of what you draw from your bag, which is very mitigatable, because you know, you're going to be choosing what goes into that bag in the first place. A really good game. One that is, as I said, very low downtime in this. Everyone's constantly got their heads down on their board trying to figure out what they're going to do. Quite, you know, the player interaction is there in terms of trying to beat people to certain spots, trying to get up that track as quick as possible to get those noble tiles, trying to beat people to certain cities and stuff like that. But mostly you're going to be concentrating on your own kind of engine and what you're doing yourself. The variability here is excellent, because basically every round of the game you're going to be drawing a new event, and those events are going to completely dictate what you can do on that turn. Some are a lot more drastic and significant than others, but that kind of that tension of what is the next turn going to bring? Am I going to have enough to fulfill the criteria that I need, or am I going to be punished by means of torture? So am I going to have to give certain goods away? Am I going to have to move down that track? And all these things are constantly biting away at you, and you've got to really carefully balance it all while trying to beat your opponent. So a very captivating game, and one that you really have to concentrate and be fully on board to get the most out of. But those are the kind of games that I really enjoy. I love I love all the different tracks that you have to kind of fight over, because they're all really good in their own unique way. As I said, you want to be making your engine better so you can do more in your turns by placing those cogs down. You want to be getting as many monk tiles as possible so you can be more efficient. You want to be getting your farmers up, so that basically every time you're going to be gaining a coin, or the person who's the furthest behind on that track is going to be losing a coin. So they're all really good. They are all very good. And of course, you want a good balance of those chits, so you can be more kind of liquid in your strategy. Yeah, overall, it's just a fantastic game. I also really enjoy the that kind of map of France on the board, where you've got to try to kind of travel around France, trying to build all your different houses. I must say that is one of the kind of weaker area in the game, at least before the expansion was introduced, which I'll cover in a minute, because you just seem to be kind of going around it, collecting the most valuable goods, because those goods are basically direct points at the end of the game, and placing your kind of your trade houses down. But what I would have liked to have seen is a bit more kind of purpose in that. And the expansion really does address that very, very well, which I'll explain in a minute. I also, well, there is another spot on the board as well. So instead of kind of activating these worker placement spots on your own personal board, you've got this kind of communal board, which permanently kind of get rid of the chits that you maybe don't want anymore from your bag. So you send them off to this permanent board and you'll never get them back, but they give you kind of one-off bonuses, which is money, or is mainly money in the base game. But it kind of has this kind of chicken mentality to it as well, because there is only a very limited amount of spaces. But the person who gets the last space on those boards gets another reward as well, which is usually pretty damn good. But again, I would love to have seen more kind of incentive to go to that board in the base game. But again, the expansion does address this. And again, I will cover that in a minute. The game scales very, very well. It works fantastically at a two-player game. It is so quick and back and forth. And before you know it, all those events will be just completely gone. And you'll be at the end of the game before you know it. The events are nice and varied. But again, I would have liked to have seen a bit more variability here. So anyway, I'll go straight into the expansion now, because the three kind of main issues I had with the game, which are kind of nitpicky, they're not big issues at all, but I thought for long-term kind of stability of this game, it would have needed more kind of content injected into it. So number one was the events. The event deck, or the event tiles that come with the base game are decent. But the expansion, which is called Trade and Intrigue, really makes the events a lot more varied, a lot more kind of dynamic and interactive, and basically you've got a lot more variability there, and they are a lot more interesting than the base game ones. Also, the map of France, which I was talking about, the Trade and Intrigue expansion really addresses the fact that you have to be in certain places with certain goods in order to get a better point return on your goods. So it really does give you more and more incentive to go to that board, which is important anyway, but it makes it a lot more fun because you can kind of more carefully plan your routes, and instead of just going off in your separate directions, which you probably normally do in the base game, you both want to be trying to fulfill these contracts basically by having a certain goods in a certain place to get the points that way. So I really love the that deck of cards in the expansion. It adds so much more kind of another layer to that to the map. I also, probably the best thing about that expansion completely is the fact that the permanent worker placement spots where you get rid of your chits is so much more interesting. You've got loads of different rewards which are much more, or a much bigger incentive than just the small amounts of money you get from the base game, because some of these worker placement spots where you deliver your workers for good, they're going to get you more of these noble tiles, which are so important. So you're going to be kind of, you're going to be going to those places earlier and having to sacrifice your workers a lot more earlier than you probably would do in the base game, because you don't want to leave them too long because they will be snapped up very quickly. That is such a huge improvement on the base game, and I would never ever play without it. The content that comes with that Trade and Intrigue expansion is absolutely phenomenal, and I would always play with it. There is another kind of worker board that comes with the expansion, which is like it adds a bit more kind of take that and nastiness to the game, which I must admit I'll never ever play with. It doesn't interest me in a game like this. I don't want to play a Euro game just to attack other players and ruin what they're building. So that one may as well go in the bin for me. But the new events, the contracts for the goods, and that new permanent worker placement board is absolutely phenomenal and a must-have to get the most out of Orléans, which is a good game anyway. But just something that I really do feel quite passionately about is how good that expansion is. Anyway, let's go back to the main game itself. So, as I said, I love the amount of strategy you can take. I love that track at the bottom, the pressure of trying to get to the top, the pressure of trying to build as many trade houses as possible for that end game scoring. planning your routes on the board. The game is quick, always engaging, always got your kind of planning and turns ahead. I love how you can strategically place your workers on the board, how you can improve your engine. This game really does have everything. It plays in a very nice amount of time. You know, it's not going to take any longer than 2 hours. Playing at a reasonable rate, you're not going to be speeding at that time frame. So it's just a wonderful Euro game, and one that I couldn't really recommend enough. It's absolutely fantastic. The uptime is great, the replayability is great, especially with the injection of the expansion content. The game, I actually really like the look of the game as well. A lot of people don't kind of like that kind of that minimalist medieval look to it, but I think it's quite charming. I really do like the look of the game. The iconography is very good, very clear, and I've never had a problem with it. And the component quality is good as well. Nice player boards, some nice wooden pieces there. Yeah, I really think it's a great package in total. The theme of the game, you know, it's Euro. You're not really kind of playing a game like this for the theme, but it does kind of work well. Yeah, basically, another thing we'll briefly mention as well is the setup time is a little bit of a pain in the ass, but nothing too significant. It takes, you know, a good 15-20 minutes to get it to the table, but again, it's worth it. It's so worth it. The game is so rewarding when you get your engine going. The kind of tension between trying to race those spots, the frustration of you never ever draw the kind of the chits that you want. It just has everything, this game. It has enough kind of mitigation and enough kind of autonomy to be a very strategic game, but you're always slightly at the mercy of the draw of chits from your bag, which again is kind of good in a way because it does kind of eliminate that kind of analysis paralysis, as well as kind of dictating your kind of strategy or tactics to some point as well. So I absolutely adore the game in total. As I said, it's gone straight into my top 10. So impressed with this. I've played this a good amount of times in a very short amount of time, and I'm just looking forward to playing more and more, hopefully getting better at the game. But yeah, I love it. So many different routes to victory, but you have to keep some things in the back of your mind at all times. So yeah, if you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the game, one that I really couldn't recommend enough. The deck build, so the bag building is a cool concept, and probably one that you're going to be seeing more and more of going into the future. The worker placement spots are really clever because some spots you have to go to in order to unlock new chits, which get you kind of the ability to unlock or to go to other spots on the board. And something I didn't cover as well is how you can kind of customize your own player board as well, because you can unlock new buildings which come from a big stack of buildings. You've got your kind of age 1 buildings and your age 2 buildings, and they're just constant worker placement spots which are very varied and very cool. Something I will say though is that the base game does kind of say that all these tiles are available at all times, so you know, you can always kind of follow the same strategy that way. But something that I do in my gaming group is to only let 3 of those buildings be available at all times. So basically, you're going to get more variation that way, and you're never always going to have the same kind of people following the same strategies and going to the same buildings at all times. So yeah, a few little things I've addressed there, but honestly, it's no kind of slight on the game whatsoever. It's so well designed, an absolutely amazing game, and one that I'm just looking forward to playing more and more going into the future. So yeah, that's my review on Orléans. A fantastic game, one that I couldn't recommend enough. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. Going back, pick up that Trade and Intrigue expansion. An absolute necessity to get the most out of this game, but you might be fine without it. But personally, I think it adds so much, and it just makes the game perfect. So yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.